All right, let's break it down, Falcons fans. So Mel Kiper decided to drop his final mock draft 2.5 weeks before the big show kicks off. I'm here to react to his picks for the Falcons in the first 2 rounds. And look, I gotta say, a little public shaming is due for Kiper here. It's April 8th, and he's wrapping up all his work on the draft as if we're at the finish line of the pre-draft hype train. I mean, really? Right before it all goes down? Anyway, let's dive in. Starting with pick number 1, Kiper goes with Cam Ward. No surprise there. That's been the trendy pick for a while. Then, at pick number 2, Kiper throws in Travis Hunter, another name we've seen pop up recently. Pick 3 sees Abdul Carter heading to the Giants, which could make that pass rush a nightmare. At number 4, the Patriots are all about keeping Drake May's dream alive by picking up Will Campbell, a new left tackle. Next, pick 5 has Mason Graham, which has been a popular pick for the past month. The Raiders take Ashton Gentry at pick 6, but I've heard some rumblings that Will Johnson might be their guy. Then, the Jets go O-line, grabbing one of the best tackle prospects in Armin Armano. At pick 7, the Panthers select Jalen Walker. That one stings a little for Falcons fans since we've been eyeing him for a while. The division is getting tougher. Next, the Saints grab Shedeur Sanders at pick 9. Whether that's a win or loss for Atlanta depends on your perspective, but honestly, I think it's a good thing for the Falcons. Tyler Warren is off the board, teaming up with Caleb Williams in Chicago, and then Will Johnson goes to San Francisco, just a few spots ahead of Atlanta at pick 15. So now we're at the Falcons. The Dolphins take Jay Barron, a versatile secondary guy from Texas. Colston Loveland is snapped up by Indy, and with the 15th pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Atlanta Falcons select Mike Green, defensive end from Marshall. Now, if you've been following the draft with us the last couple of months, you've heard a lot about Mike Green. If this is your first time checking in, don't worry, I've got you covered. Here's the quick rundown. Mike Green was a force last year, leading the nation with 17 sacks. This comes after a somewhat underwhelming 2023 season. He started at Virginia, didn't play much in 2022, and had a late-blooming 2024 season at Marshall. Now you might think, well, he played at Marshall. Who cares? But let me tell you, Green wasn't just dominating nobodies. He took it to Ohio State, and he showed up against guys who'll be drafted much higher than him. And if you're sitting there saying, but he's from a group of 5 school, look, Khalil Mack was picked 5th overall from Buffalo, and he was Defensive Player of the Year in 2015. So, no, I'm not worried about Mike Green coming from Marshall. The guy can play, and that's how you're setting the tone for the Falcons' first-round pick. Let's talk about the comparison between Khalil Mack and Mike Green, because the similarities between the two are pretty wild. Now, we're not talking about their playing styles. Mack is a power guy who dominates with brute strength. I mean, remember the highlight of him sacking Aaron Rodgers with his back? That's how strong he is. But when you compare the physical attributes of the two, there are some interesting parallels. Both stand at 6'3" and weigh around 251 pounds. At the Combine, Green's 3-cone drill time was 6.85 seconds, which would have been the best at the Combine. Even if you factor in a little home-cooked stopwatch action, it still beats Khalil Mack's time. That's crazy, right? Now, Mike Green wins more with speed and agility, which is exciting, but it does raise some questions. In college, being faster than everyone else is one thing, but when you get to the NFL, you're up against guys like Trent Williams, who runs like a cheetah. Still, Green has the bend, the flexibility, and enough strength to be a problem at the next level. So there's a lot to like about his game. Let's look at the numbers. Mack had 10.5 sacks in his final college season, and Green had 17. But here's the thing. Neither of them played in the powerhouse conferences like the SEC or Big Ten. Mack was from Buffalo, and Green's from Marshall. But hey, Khalil Mack wasn't drafted top 5 because of who he was playing against. He was drafted because he dominated, and Green's doing the same thing. Now, I'm all in on Mike Green. If this doesn't work out and he ends up being another Vic Beasley or Tack McKinley, sure, I'll put my hand up and say I was wrong, but I think Green can be a productive player for the Falcons, or any team really. Do I think he'll be a perennial Pro Bowler? Probably not, but it's tough to find those guys outside of the top 10 picks. What I do think is that Green can break the streak of Falcons pass rushers who failed to hit 10 sacks in a season. It's been a decade since a Falcon hit double-digit sacks, and that needs to change. To put things in perspective, the last time a Falcon hit 10 sacks, women weren't allowed to drive in Saudi Arabia. Yeah, it's been that long, but Green could be the guy to turn that around. Before we dive into round 2, I want to give a special shout out to Crockett and Barry Brazil for sending in a super thanks on a previous video. If you want a shout out, just send in a super thanks. It's like a digital tip jar. Hit the heart icon below with the money sign in the middle, select any amount, and we'll shout you out on a future episode. Now let's keep rolling. Round 1 is coming to a close, and here's the rest of the action. Matthew Golden heads to the Cardinals. He's my top wide receiver in this class. G.I. Campbell, who I've seen mocked to Atlanta, goes to the Bengals. And Nicky Morey is up next. Some Falcons fans are really into the idea of picking Malachi Starks, but in this mock, he ends up with the Buccaneers. It's always a little rough when a division rival grabs a player that could have been a target for Atlanta. Another name that's popped up a lot is Derek Harmon, but I don't see the Falcons going for a defensive tackle here. They picked up Rook and Doris last year, so unless they're thinking of replacing Grady Jarrett early in this draft, I don't think that's the direction they'll go. Now, the Rams surprise us by picking quarterback Jackson Dart. That's a bit of a spicy pick, something you don't see coming every day. Malachi Starks, however, lands with the Ravens, which is interesting because they already have Kyle Hamilton. Do they really need 2 elite safeties? Personally, I'm not sure about that one. Shamir Stewart and James Pierce are 2 names that have been on Atlanta's radar for a while now. Both have visited with the Falcons, and while I'm sure Pierce has, I think Stewart might have been in the mix too. Don't quote me on that one. Both of them go toward the back end of round 1, so we'll see if they become real options for Atlanta. Before we dive into round 2 of the mock, I do want to take a quick second to give a big shout out to Game Time. Game Time is making it easier than ever to get tickets, and their prices drop as the event gets closer. If you're planning on going to a Braves game and want to save some cash, you can use Game Time to get $20 off your first purchase. It's all-in pricing, no surprise fees at checkout, and they even have this cool feature called Game Time Picks to help you choose your events. Just create an account, use the code CHADSPORTS at checkout, and boom, $20 off your first purchase. Don't wait, download the app, and make buying tickets a breeze. Now, back to the second round of Mel Kiper's mock draft. He kicks things off with 2 quarterbacks, Tyler Show from Louisville and Jalen Milroe to the Giants. Then we see a player, I'll be honest, I hadn't heard of before, Amecha Ibuka, who goes as high as pick 35 to Jacksonville. A little surprising there. Luther Bird and Walter Nolan also come off the board, but I don't see Atlanta targeting a receiver early in this draft. Walter Nolan, however, could be an interesting pick as a potential Grady Jarrett replacement down the line. He's a solid run stopper, but Nolan also has that pass rush upside with 6.5 sacks last season. Definitely someone to keep an eye on. Kenneth Grant is another name to remember. He's a massive guy at 6 feet 3 inches, 330 pounds, and while his tape shows some inconsistency, he's got some serious upside. People are even saying he could have run a sub-5-second 40-yard dash. If the Falcons are looking for a nose tackle who can also generate some pass rush, Grant could be the guy. As we inch closer to the Falcons' pick in this mock, we see an offensive lineman head to the Colts, but that's not really in play for Atlanta right now. And then there's Benjamin Morrison, who we've mentioned before as a possible pick for the Falcons. But, spoiler alert, that video hasn't come out yet. So, here's the scoop. I filmed a video yesterday that's set to drop this weekend, and let me tell you, we had a great chat about Benjamin Morrison. I'm really excited about this pick for the Falcons. Morrison is a solid player, and the only reason he's being talked about as a second-round guy is because of some injury concerns. He missed half of the 2024 season and struggled with a hip injury during the second half. Now, a hip injury in your early 20s? That's definitely a red flag, no doubt about it. But if the medical evaluations from the Combine and Pro Days check out, there's a lot to love about this guy. Morrison is incredibly fluid, long, and has a great range. It's not every day you find a cornerback who combines ball skills, fluidity, and impressive long speed. When you look at his 2023 season, you'll see he's got 9 career interceptions and a touchdown, along with 27 pass breakups. That's some serious production. Sometimes you find players with great instincts, but they have to rely on those instincts because they lack speed or fluidity. Not Morrison. He's got the best of both worlds. Sure, the hip injury is a concern, but I think he could be a fantastic pick for Atlanta. They've got some flexibility at cornerback with 3 starters, A.J. Terrell, Mike Hughes, and whoever wins the battle between D. Alfred and Clark Phillips. Here's my game plan. Draft Benjamin Morrison in the second round and let him take a year to recover. Think of it as a redshirt year for 2025. By the time Week 1 rolls around, he won't even be a full year removed from that hip injury. There's no rush to get him on the field right away, and by 2026, you won't have to scramble for a new starting corner in free agency or the early draft. You'll have a guy who's already got a year of NFL practice and preseason experience under his belt, ready to line up opposite A.J. Terrell. Now, let's talk about some players Atlanta passed on in this mock draft. J.T. Tuimoloau from Ohio State was a standout in the college football playoff, and I always pay attention to how players perform in big games. Then there's Siobhan Revel from ECU, who tore his ACL early in the season. He's 6 feet 2 inches and runs like the wind, so teams will definitely be interested in his traits, even with the injury concerns. If Atlanta doesn't go for a defensive end or pass rusher in the first round, keep an eye on Nick Scorton from Texas A&M. He started at Purdue and was the Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year before transferring. He might have been a bit underwhelming at A&M, but he's still a solid pick. Moving on, there's Darian Porter. I'm not ready to say he's my guy just yet, but at 6 feet 3 inches with incredible speed, someone's going to fall in love with him. I always emphasize the difference between football players and track stars. We've seen plenty of fast guys like John Ross and Anthony Schwartz who didn't quite pan out in the NFL. So if a team does take a chance on Porter, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. I have a feeling that Benjamin Morrison is more likely to go in the 3rd round than the 2nd, and it's going to take some patience. You've got to trust that this coaching staff can develop a former wide receiver who switched to cornerback halfway through college. He's still learning the ropes a bit, but that's part of the journey. Now let's wrap up round 2. Wow, that went by fast. To recap, I'm a fan of Mike Green from Marshall in round 1, and I'm all in on Benjamin Morrison as well. Hey Moose, can you turn your mic on for a second? I don't want to put you on the spot, but I've got our producer, Trace Mustakis, here, and he's a die-hard Notre Dame fan. Give us a quick 60-second elevator pitch on Benjamin Morrison. I know people are getting tired of hearing the same names in round 1, but round 2 is where we can find some fresh talent. All right, here's the deal with Morrison. Yes, he had a pretty serious injury, but when he's on the field, he's got the skills and explosiveness you want in a corner. He's aggressive when it comes to jumping routes, which is great. The real question is whether he can twist his hips and compete at the top of a route, especially against speedy receivers on go routes. But here's the good news. Keeping things in front of him in zone coverage won't be an issue. And since Atlanta plays a lot of zone, that's a perfect fit. I'm all for putting him on the PUP list for a year. There's no rush to get him out there right away, especially with 3 starting corners already in place. It'll take some patience, but trust me, in 12 months, you'll be glad you did this. You won't need to search for a new starting corner because Morrison will be fully recovered from that hip injury and ready to shine. That's a wrap for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, do me a favor before you head out. Like the video and subscribe.